Okay, our next public hearing is a consideration of an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the use permit numbers 18-03 and 18-04 filed by a neighbor of the project. The site is located on the western half of the Carriage Square Shopping Center. So at this time, we'll go ahead and have a report by Arnaldo Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Arnoldo Rodriguez, Development Services Department. The item before you this evening is consideration of an appeal filed for two use permits. The reason that staff combined the two use permits into one staff report is because the two projects are located on one piece of property, and for all purposes, including pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, we had to consider the project as one project. So it's multiple actions. However, again, it's one project. So that's the reason why it's all included in one staff report. So just for background purposes, this is a consideration of an appeal. This project was initially considered by the Planning Commission on June the 25th, a couple of weeks ago, and it's part of the it's proposing to redevelop a portion or the western half of the Carriage Square Shopping Center. So the site itself, it's about 3 3/4 of an acre. It's located, it's sandwiched between Bridge Street on the north, Weiler on the south, Highway 99 to the west. Immediately to the east is a portion of the Carriage Square Shopping Center, which is not being proposed for redevelopment at this time. And then you have Lawrence Avenue to the west of that. A couple of key things that we'll be going over through this evening is that there's currently a street that's commonly referred to as Palora Avenue that traverses the property. It largely bisects the piece of property. However, that is private property. It's not a public street. And staff and the Planning Commission have indicated no desire to convert the private property into a street. And I'll provide a little bit of background there. So prior to the Planning Commission meeting on June the 25th, the Planning Commission had previously considered this project at the tail end of 2017. At the time, it was simply a parcel map to subdivide the property. At that Planning Commission meeting, there was extensive discussion or dialogue regarding the status of Palora. After a couple of hours of discussing the item, the Planning Commission determined that they were okay with keeping the property private. Staff did not recommend that the applicant dedicate a street, and however, the Planning Commission did put a condition on the property that a vehicle and pedestrian, both ingress and egress, be maintained to Weiler Avenue. So because of that, the applicant is proposing to maintain that, and quite frankly, staff is recommending that we maintain that access point to Weiler Avenue from the south side of the property. So just a very quick summary, staff received a verbal appeal from a nearby neighbor. I'm going to try to provide a summary of the items that they noted in their appeal. However, the appellant is here this evening, and she can definitely speak in terms of any items that she has. But again, this is my understanding of the items of concern: traffic, the lack of sidewalks specifically to the south, the status of North Palora Avenue. Again, is it a public road versus a private drive aisle? And then the public notification process. So just a quick summary. Here's an aerial photo of the site. The buildings on the western side of the road, if you go out to the property right now, they're demolished, so the site is cleared. This aerial photo was taken at about 2 years ago. The buildings on the east side are proposed to remain as part of this project. You have Weiler Avenue to the south, you have Bridge Street to the north, and you have Highway 99 that makes up the western boundary. Historically, there were 5 access points to the property. There were 3 off of Bridge Street, 2 specifically for the Shell gas station, which has since been demolished, and it's being redeveloped right now with the 2-story Bank of Feather River headquarters. There was an access point off of Lawrence Avenue along the northern boundary, and then there was a 5th access point along Weiler to the south, which is identified there on the bottom of the screen. That, the arrow is highlighting the historic drive aisle that, again, it did largely resemble a street with angled parking off of it, but again, that is private property. The city does not have ownership of that. We spent a considerable amount of time, both staff did, the applicant, and and their engineer trying to ensure that that again was never deeded to the city. It's never been maintained as a public road. The city has never expended any public funds to maintain that as a road. So again, it's private property. A quick overview of the project. There's a total of 3 buildings being proposed on the site, not including the bank. The bank would be the 4th building. Of that, there are 2 drive-throughs. The primary reason why this project is a use permit, or the use permits, it's plural, is because of the drive-throughs. If the drive-throughs were not included, it would not be a discretionary action. Rather, the project would be considered at a staff level. Total, including the bank site and including the existing shopping center, 236 parking spaces are proposed, which is consistent or complies with the local ordinance. And the applicant is also proposing to consolidate the drive approaches along Bridge Street. So again, there's currently 3 drive approaches. 2 of them would be removed. So there would be 1 principal drive approach. For the most part, we're lines up with, well, again, which a lot of people refer to as Pelora along Bridge Street. So here's the site. The green building, and I apologize, it doesn't come out extremely clear, but the green building here, that's the existing building that's going to remain. The yellow on the northwest corner is the bank, which is under construction. The red boundary identifies the property line. The 2 purple buildings identify where the 2 drive-throughs are going to be at, or are proposed. And then the southernmost building there along Weiler, that would be the 4th building. The 4th building is proposed as a retail space. They are proposing a restaurant in half of it. However, that part is not proposed for a drive-through. So again, the 2 drive-through buildings are at the center of the property in purple. In terms of access points, the site itself would provide a right in and a right out from Bridge Street. It currently provides a left into the site off of Bridge Street. That left would remain. However, the applicant acknowledges that at any time that could potentially close, and that's largely at the discretion of Caltrans. There is a proposed exit onto Lawrence Avenue from this site, and then the site itself, again, at the request of the Planning Commission, there is an ingress and egress to be maintained to Weiler Avenue. However, that access point is proposed to shift to the west a little bit, and I have another slide that highlights that. So, so the overview here provides an excellent overview in terms of what the site with mature landscaping would look like. The 2 drive-throughs, again, here's one on the south, the one to the north. The purple diagram there, or the hot purple square there, represents what would allow for stacking of vehicles in the drive-through should the drive-throughs hypothetically overflow. I know there's been concerns about drive-through stacking in our community. Whenever drive-throughs come in for staff review, those are things that we take a look at. We absolutely have to ensure that we do not have vehicles queuing onto public roadways, potentially creating a traffic hazard. The site itself, the 2 drive-throughs would provide portico shares, and they would also provide half-wall fence combinations comparable to a lot of the other drive-throughs in the community to soften the appearance of a drive-through, and also to screen the headlights from vehicles both in the drive-through from oncoming traffic, especially as traffic is traveling northbound, and then also vice versa. So the red arrow provides a good example. Here's Weiler Avenue as where it exists. So Weiler right now currently goes north-south, and again, it's being proposed to be shifted to the west. The primary reason for that is for traffic calming. It's to slow down traffic. There was a lot of discussion at staff level in conjunction with the fire department at the Planning Commission, and it was concluded that the most appropriate place would be to shift it to the west. And again, that's simply for traffic calming measures to ensure that vehicles are not racing through, treating it, again, it's going to be a private parking lot and not treating it as though it's a public street. So in terms of the aesthetics of the building, it has a contemporary appearance. This is one of the proposed buildings. The building does provide plane breaks. It provides different building materials. Again, the portico share, and it provides a half wall for the outdoor dining. This is one of the 2 buildings. So as you're traveling along Highway 99, this is one of the buildings. What's not included on here is the landscaping, and the site would provide landscaping as well. This is for vehicles traveling northbound. So the slide should read northbound, not north side. This is actually the south side of the building, but as people are driving northbound, that's, if you look into the shopping center, that's the appearance of the building. The second building, again, from Highway 99 in terms of aesthetics, that would be the northern or the top building there. Plain breaks, different building materials. So staff spent a considerable amount of time with the applicant and their project architect to make sure that we worked out the small details in terms of lighting, aesthetics, ensuring that we had plain breaks to make an aesthetically pleasing building. So as people are coming into our community, it's that it looks good. In terms of traffic, at staff's request, the applicant did commission a traffic impact study. That traffic impact study was provided in your report. The study itself was initially completed in December of 2017. However, staff requested that they do an addendum to that traffic study that was completed on May 2018. Staff shared that study with Caltrans, and Caltrans reviewed it, and they were in agreement with the conclusions of the study. As part of the study, 9 different intersections were studied, going down from Franklin Avenue all the way to Bridge Street, and a couple of the intersections along Gray Street. A couple of things that the study assessed. It assessed near-term impacts, longer-term impacts, and then credit was also given for the buildings that were demolished. So again, the buildings that were there, those were credited against the new buildings that are being proposed because they were for retail use. So the short-term impacts, new traffic will be generated in comparison to what historically was there. However, with that being said, those impacts are not considered significant. While we would acknowledge that there are existing roadways that currently do not meet adopted city standards, new projects cannot be expected to mitigate existing issues. Projects pursuant to CEQA can only mitigate to pre-project conditions. So again, while Bridge Street and Highway 99 is currently today, it's at a lower standard than adopted city standards, this project itself, although it'll exacerbate it, we cannot expect the applicant to mitigate to, again, the existing issues that exist today. Overall, the increase is not considered significant by adopted city standards. However, there is mitigation to ensure that does not occur. The longer-term impacts, the bank has dedicated, if I recall, I think 4 feet to widen Bridge Street. There is a condition, it's a mitigation for phase 5 of the Bridge Street project. The mitigation itself would be the applicant would be contributing their fair share portion to mitigate impacts to the intersection of Bridge and Lawrence. The remaining intersections, specifically Gray and Weiler Avenue, the mitigation would equate to probably less than $200. So out of all the new traffic specific to the intersection of Gray and Weiler Avenue, it would probably be less than $200. It's going to take staff time a considerable amount more to make that exact determination, but some of the rough numbers that we estimated, again, it's probably less than $200. And then the applicant would be participating as part of the city's development impact fee program to pay their fair share in terms of new construction. So in terms of Bridge Street, because again, there is a mitigation measure for phase 5, just to highlight some of the Bridge Street improvements, we have phase 1 of Bridge Street, which again is on Shasta, it's on Bridge between Plumas and Shasta. That phase is completed. We had phase 2, which is Plumas down to Cooper. That phase is completed. We have phase 3, which is being developed right now. That would be the new bridge. We have phase 4, which the city has begun to purchase the property and has been demolishing the homes on the north side of Bridge between Cooper and Gray. And then we have ultimately phase 5, which would be from Gray to Highway 99. So again, as part of this project, the applicant is going to be contributing their fair share for the impacts to Bridge and Lawrence Avenue, which would ultimately be part of the Phase 5 Bridge Street Enhancement Program. So as part of the addendum, one of staff's concerns is, well, what happens to the local roadways? We studied the intersections, but what happens to the local roads? And so we asked the applicant to examine, or their traffic engineer to examine 5 roadways, Lawrence, Barrett, B, Weiler, and Pelora Avenue, going all the way down to Franklin Avenue. In terms of significant impacts, or not significant, but in terms of impacts, the study came back and concluded that the applicant should make improvements on the south side of Weiler Avenue to widen the shoulder between Pelora and Lawrence. And in terms of everything else, the roadways are of a capacity or do have access capacity to accommodate the traffic that's expected to be generated as part of this project. And in terms of Bridge Street, the applicant's going to be improving sidewalks along Bridge Street within the boundaries of their project. One of the other items that the appellant had noticed was the public noticing process. The public noticing process is outlined in state law. There's a mail notice that's required to surrounding property owners, and then there's a local notice within the local newspaper. So the parcel's identified in red, right in there, and everything in yellow are the properties that we notified. State law mandates that we notify people within 300 feet. Just to give you an idea, the black arrow there is about what you would typically notice at about a 300-foot buffer. So it would capture about the fourth home to the east on Weiler Avenue. And if anyone's from that area, it's about the mid-block of that home or about the midpoint of that home. Staff sent notices to people as far as 1,100 feet. So one of the things we did is we took a look at the potential impacts, the roadways, and we said, well, what would be reasonable and how many people should we notice? So we went above and beyond your standard typical public noticing requirements, which is identified there in the pink. So the appeal, just to kind of recap a couple of items. One of them, again, was the status of Pelora. Pelora Avenue is it's private property, not a public street. The applicant will be required to make some improvements to Weiler, and again, there's also mitigation included for the intersection of Bridge and Barrett, and then the public noticing, which identified staff went above and beyond the state laws. In terms of mitigation, just to recap a couple of items. In terms of the California Environmental Quality Act, which is what governs how environmental assessments are prepared in the state, any solution that's identified should be roughly proportional to the project and to the impacts of the project. And again, projects can only be expected to mitigate to pre-project conditions, not to resolve existing items or existing issues in the community. And traffic is a very good example of that in a lot of cases. Staff did prepare an environmental assessment. We made a determination that a mitigated negative declaration was appropriate because there are mitigation measures, and those mitigation measures were incorporated into the project conditions of approval. So with that being said, staff's recommendation this evening would be to affirm the commission's approval of the environmental assessment, which again does include the mitigation measures, and then to adopt two resolutions, both denying the appeal and approving the two use permits. So with that being said, I apologize if I spoke fast. I know there's a lot of other items on the agenda this evening, but staff's prepared to answer any questions, and the applicant, his team's here, as well as the traffic engineer. Oh.
Turned it off because I was moving paper around. So the public hearing is now open as far as any of the public member who wishes to come up and speak regarding this project. I do have a couple of written requests. So Pamela Thompson, Pamela, you put in a written request, so you got 5 minutes. So if you go to the podium and state your name and address, Pamela.
Good evening. My name is Pamela Thompson. I live at 1200 Weiler Road, which is outlined on the map here. Let's see. Next one over. Yes. I reside at 1200 Weiler Road, and this construction that's going to take place is going to impact my street and my property. Our home is adjacent to the proposed Carriage Square Shopping Center project. This center proposes 2 drive-through food businesses with plans to funnel or direct exiting traffic down Weiler Road, pass by my front door, and driveway property entrance. I learned something tonight that there is not going to be a road in the development, so all the traffic is going to be coming out in front of my house. The congestion and vehicle exhaust would be disruptive and damaging to our community and public health. Currently, Weiler Road is a small, quiet, children-friendly residential community with minimal traffic patterns. We see the impact of congestion and backup of cars entering the Antonio's Quick Lunch drive-thru and how it backs up traffic on Colusa Highway. Weiler Road is a single-lane road, not a 3-lane highway. This type of vehicle backup and exhaust congestion is unacceptable in our small residential community. Specifically, here are my concerns, or our concerns, of those who are here tonight. With the proposed development, has the city done a study of the current traffic patterns in our community and proposed increased traffic levels? What are those levels? All I see in the report is that it's not significant. Concern number 2, with the proposed development, what type of street improvements are proposed for our street, Weiler Road, to address the increased traffic? Soundproof wall barriers, repaving Weiler Road, etc. Is this report available? With the proposed development, what environmental impacts will this new traffic pattern have on our community, i.e., vehicle exhaust, traffic speeds, noise, loitering? Is this report available? What I have read so far is that it's been ruled not significant. With this proposed development, Weiler Road residents have children in our community. What traffic safeguards have been proposed to address this matter? Is this report available? With the proposed development on a privately owned street, what law, regulation, or code allows a private citizen's investment aspirations to impact a public residential community without some input or some type of compensation or allowance? Our street, our homes, our community will have to deal with the increased traffic, the increased noise. Our housing values will slump. Property values will slump. Noise, safety issues are very important to us. But because of a private citizen's investment aspirations and profit, we as the citizens on Weiler Road have no input. In closing, with concerns stated above, we request a delay in your decision to accept the recommendations of the City of Yuba City staff report, items A through D. Allow us, the impacted Weiler Road residents, the opportunity to meet with Planning Commission and the City of Yuba City to discuss our concerns regarding increased traffic patterns, increased vehicle exhaust health impacts, street improvements to handle the new traffic patterns, and addressing sound and noise issues associated with increased traffic. Our suggestion is do not funnel or direct the Carriage Square Shopping Center development traffic onto Weiler Road. Reroute it. Redesign the flow of increased traffic patterns. We're asking for a delay in making a decision on this recommendation at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Next, we have Samuel Thompson. Samuel, if you'll state your name and address when you get to the podium, please, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Did you say 3 or 5?
3.
Okay, I'm just playing with you.
I'm like, Pamela had the written request.
My name is Samuel Thompson. I live at 1200 Weiler Road. I'm excited about the development. I am personally associated with the developer in terms of how he has helped support our church in my endeavors to live in this community. Kurt Hilber, he is a friend. And I want the development. I have a business less than a quarter mile called Porky's Barbecue, best barbecue in town. And I know that the added traffic is going to have an advantage to my business. But I'm also a residential proposed client of this area. I do not want to see traffic from 11 to 10 at night going up and down my street. I've lived there since 1997, since the flood. I would ask, in addition with my wife, that another option be looked at to control the flow of traffic coming out of the proposed drive-throughs. That street is only 2 blocks long, roughly 2.5 blocks long, from Pelora to Gray Avenue. So if it becomes a thoroughfare for all of the drive-through traffic, you're not going to get much rest, and you're not going to get away from the noise, and you're not going to get away from the exhaust. You're not going to get away from the intensity that will be brought about by drive-throughs. As I said, I'm in favor of the development. I would like to see another way of getting through coming out of the drive-throughs. And I really don't know why, if that private road, if the buildings are set back far enough, that the drive-through could come around and go right out Pelora, right onto Gray Avenue, pretty much like they do at Carl's Jr. It's a small drive-through, but it lets you right out onto Bridge. And so my concern is that another approach be looked at the Planning Commission, take a little bit more time and rethink about how the traffic can be diverted. Now, in the conclusion of my speech, if no other route is available, then I would propose that speed bumps be constructed every 5 feet. And I'm serious. So they have an option if my proposal and our proposal is not adhered to. Like I said, I'm very much in favor of development, and I'm excited about what's going on in Yuba City. But I think we have to take the residents of Weiler under consideration. And while we're up here, I would like to ask the supervisors to take a walk down Weiler Road. I have been to the planning department for 5 years to repave it, to put gutters in, to put sidewalks in, and the only thing they've come out to do was put rock down. And we pay property tax almost $3,000 a year for our home. So thank you for this time. Remember, every 5 feet.
Thank you, Samuel. Next, we have Cassandra Ruiz. Cassandra, if you can state your name and address for the record as well. And you'll have 3 minutes as well.
Good evening to the great city of Yuba City council members. My name is Cassandra. I live at 1220 Weiler Road, Yuba City, California. I am concerned for the condition of Weiler Road and Pelora. At this very time, this very moment, senior citizens and people with disabilities are making their way through this mess and are forced off the sidewalk onto the street on Pelora, where the sidewalk just abruptly ends. On Weiler, where there also is no sidewalk. With this proposed change, the street traffic will increase due to the drive-through exiting out onto Weiler Road, where we have a high volume of foot traffic due to a lot of people living in the apartments on B Street, single-family owned grocery stores up and down Pelora Avenue. We are also concerned about our children, animals, elderly, with the increase of carbon dioxide and lead from the vehicles going through our neighborhood due to the drive-through proposed by the planning division, the developer, builder, architect, owner. Number 5, concern for the rainy season. When it floods on the corner of Weiler and Pelora Avenue, when it floods on the corner of Weiler and Pelora, excuse me, I need a I'm trying to do this fast so I can get my
It's
3
okay,
minutes.
just take a deep breath. It's fine. No
Okay.
problem.
The concern for the rainy season when it floods on the corner of Weiler and Pelora Avenue. Still haven't seen the street swept on the side of Pelora. There still is a mountain of dirt blocking the gutter, which I brought to the Planning Commission's attention on the meeting we had on June 27th, 2018. One of the gentlemen that worked for the city said he would have a street sweeper out there the next day. Still have not seen no streets of the street being swept. No signs of the street being swept. Also concerned about the asbestos poisoning in the groundwater. Can we please see results for that? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, city council members of the great city of Yuba City.
Thank you,
And
Cassandra.
I also had one other thing.
No problem. We still got a little bit of time.
Okay,
don't worry.
with Habit Burger, I actually went down there to Sacramento, went to their plaza. It was very beautiful. They did not have a drive-through. It was a little promenade, and it had a Habitat Burger and a Panda Express in a nice building. I don't know if anybody else has been there. And Habitat Burger is made to order, just to let everybody know. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any more speaker cards, but it's the public hearing is still open, so anybody who wishes to speak, go ahead and go to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Terry Conda. I haven't done this before, so bear with me. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy I got notified in time that I was here. I guess I ignored that first notice that was sent out to the Weiler residents. I'm one of them. So, besides Pam and Sam and the other young lady that just spoke, I'm also right next to Lawrence and on Weiler. And I have a complaint about this also. Right now, just after them blocking off Pelora and Bridge Street just so they can start doing the construction work, we're getting an increase in traffic on Weiler Road. And it's bad. Okay, we do have a lot of children that, well, not a lot, we do have some children, young children, that live on this road. It is a one-lane road, like Pam mentioned, and there's like several custom-built homes, very old homes, you know, on the south side of the Weiler Road. And actually, I think they're on both sides. But anyway, I'm concerned about the traffic. I'm concerned about the exhaust. I'm concerned about everything else that everybody mentioned before I got up here. And I understand and I realize what Sam was saying as far as detouring or making some changes. And I know that the Planning Commission has probably spent a lot of money, architectures and everything else to get this figured out. But if they can just wait, let us figure out a little bit more. We are also taxpayers. I actually would consider proposing possibly making Weiler Road a cul-de-sac at the east, I mean the west side of Weiler, not the one on Gray Avenue. That way you would still have some traffic on Lawrence. You'd still have Pelora. Just cut it off. If that's a private road, just cut our little road off. Make it a little cul-de-sac. We'd be safe. Our children would be safe. I've lived here for 18 years. I'd appreciate it if this would be considered. And I would love to come back and talk to anybody else about it in the future. I do still work in this town. I live in this town, and I still pay my taxes. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, go ahead and go to the podium. State your name and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Carl Emerson. I am a resident on North Lawrence Avenue in Yuba City. I've lived there since 1972. This long house right here is my house. And I've been to these meetings before in the past, over 20 years ago. I went with my neighbor, Rich Valentini. He lives right here. We requested at that time a street light for our street. We never saw anything. We wanted to get it repaved at that time. It never happens. The increased traffic has happened. Since this has been blocked off, this has become a drag strip from here to here. Cars, they do kick up a lot of dust because I just recently had this house painted in March. And it's dusty already from the traffic. This is my lawn. Oh, I don't know how to do that.
Welcome to technology.
Well, this, I'm the main part, but this right here is my lawn, and I commonly pick up pavement from North Lawrence Avenue because this is also a thoroughfare for tractor trailers that come up and down. Now over here is an Italian restaurant. And over here is Carriage Square. The reason I'm bringing up the restaurants is because I'm the guy who picks up the garbage. Every time there's a north wind blowing, I get to fill my blue toter up with other people's garbage blowing from across the street, Carriage Square, and that side. Well, also, along with the litter, is the flooding in the winter time down here. This whole road backs up and it's just one big river. So my friend and I, every year we take our shovels and our rakes and we go down and clean out that drain. Now we all pay taxes, but so why are we doing it? But so if this stuff goes in, what else can we expect as residences here as fallout from this project that was not ever considered? in the way of traffic. So yeah, I'd like to see some speed bumps down here too, but that requires pavement, which I've lived here for over 50 years now, and I'd like to see that. Anyway, there's a lot of smoke that comes from those restaurants. And I'm already getting smoked out from Porky's over here whenever they fire up. Inside our house, lock everything up, and put on our ventilation system. So I certainly don't want to see any more of that. So if I had stuff to say, yeah, I would reroute a lot of stuff. So I hope you guys have listened to me, and I am the senior, so thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Okay, Sam and Pam, quit smoking him out. Anybody else who would like to speak? Sure. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mike Sharp, and I live at 636 North Barrett. And I know that we have been talking about North Lawrence and we've been talking about Weiler. However, North Barrett, during high traffic times during the day, is a shortcut to get around the intersection of Bridge Street and Gray. Numerous days. I've lived, first of all, I should tell you, I've lived there since November of 2008.
Mike?
I used to live on Weiler Way.
Mike?
Right.
Mike,
I'm sorry.
sorry not to interrupt. Can you point where you are?
Oh, I'm
right
sorry.
now? Just so I have a reference to where you are.
Bottom? Okay. I live right here.
Okay, thank you.
I used to live right there. Excuse me. Again, North Barrett, no street lights, like the gentleman talked about on North Lawrence, no speed bumps. People are using this street to cut through to get to Gray Avenue to miss the intersection over here, Bridge Street and Gray, or they're using it to get back over to Highway 99 without that intersection going down Pelora into Franklin. My concern is, again, more traffic coming in front of my house at all hours of the day and night now, because we're going to be using this street along with North Lawrence. This is going to become more heavily traffic. And I agree that the proposals should be a cul-de-sac here to slow down this traffic. And I too would like to see some speed bumps on all of these streets and along with some street lighting. And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Chris Raffanan. I live at 1165 Wiley Road. Right here. This house has been in my wife's family since 1956. Belonged to Moose Mallory, who was Yuba City Electric back in the 60s and 70s. Raised 5 kids in this house and a grandson now. The traffic that comes down my road, I'm out front yelling at them every night to slow down, almost getting in fights. I have a yellow guy out in front of my house on a cone with his hand up saying, slow down, please. Because ever since this has been cut off, my kids don't play out in the street no more. They don't go out front, they don't ride their bikes. I caught somebody the other day going 60 miles an hour down my road, and he probably was going faster than that. And you can watch my video cameras and watch him 60 miles an hour down Wiley Road. Something's got to be done, because it's going to get worse. And I'm probably going to end up going to jail for getting in a fight out there in that street.
Chris, let's not do that.
I won't, but it's my kids, so people are going too fast. And I think the picture you have up there is the last time I seen anybody fill the potholes out there, because I did it this summer. Yeah. So I'm all for development. I'm a project manager with Clean Right, Build Right. I built the building catty corner to you that Arnaldo loves. And I'm all for this building. I'm for improvement. So do the right thing and improve our street for the safety of my kids. Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to speak? No? Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Bring it back to the council for questions, comments, concerns. We were open to the public hearing, yes. No, absolutely. We're going to go ahead and reopen public hearing. Go ahead and state your name and address for record, please.
Hello, I'm Scott Gibson. I'm the architect. My address is 2540 Zanella Way, Chico, California. Architect here. Last time I was before the City Council was in 1987 for the Feather Down Shopping Center. So familiar with this city, been working here for many, many years. Done a lot of projects here. And I know that change for community is always difficult. I remember when we did the Feather Down Shopping Center that there was quite a bit of discussion about it and about the type of land use that was there, and there was quite a bit of public discussion about it, and a lot of people didn't like the change, and sometimes projects do take a while to understand the change. I think like the Feather Down Shopping Center, this will be a very high quality project. Definitely we'll start, we're definitely working to try to address all the issues, but I think one of the main points that we need to talk about is that Polera Road has been there for 50 or 60 years. It's always been there. It's always been dumping traffic out onto Weiler Road, and that hasn't changed. In fact, what we're trying to do now is slow down that traffic and calm it, make it where people don't want to go that way, and try to cut off that cross traffic up to Bridge or from Bridge down south. So I think there's some good things that this project's going to do. Things that are off-site aren't necessarily in our control. And it sounds like there's quite a few issues that the city needs to address with their traffic and their road conditions and their drainage and stuff that really isn't fair or appropriate to saddle on this project. I think they're all very, very valid issues. I mean, it sounds like there's a real problem down there. I think the first thing, maybe have the police show up down there to start watching these people that are speeding down through there and not get the public citizenry in there doing traffic control. That's very unfortunate. But as Arnaldo had mentioned, that a project can't be held responsible to fix all the existing problems in the city, especially when they're several blocks away. In some cases, are not a part of this project. But one thing we are doing is we are improving and putting a new curb sidewalk in on the south side of our property, which is the north side of Weiler. And there will be, as a young lady had requested, that we are going to create a great access way that's accessible, that meets all the ADA standards for accessibility, and will greatly improve that road that doesn't have it now. So that's something that will help out a lot. I know that was one of the issues that came up, and I think it's really, really important. But what our project is trying to do is really to calm the traffic and slow it down, because there has been a problem on Polera with people speeding through there, and that's exactly why we've made the changes to the project to try to calm the traffic down and slow it down. This is really something we think will be a betterment in the community, and I think it will, rather than hurt the property values, actually raise the property values, because the project that there before wasn't a very nice project, and this is going to be a great project, and we're going to have great neighbors, and there's going to be a lot of more eyes on from a security standpoint, from better lighting, and it's going to improve the project greatly and improve the area greatly. And I think that what we see in a lot of these things is that an improvement in property values, not a decrease in property values. We have great tenants. They're all national tenants. They are tenants that take pride in their businesses, and they're great neighbors, and they are also greatly involved in the community. So that's something that that we try to do. But just a point of fact, we actually have now less square footage than what Carriage Square. So from an impact standpoint of businesses, we actually have less square footage there, smaller businesses. We actually have a lot more open space now than what we had before, because that was really that Western style building was really a wall of buildings along the street. It'll create more visibility in the site, and we also think help reduce crime, because you'll be able to see through the project from both 99 and internally in the project, and be able to have better visibility to things. As far as smoke goes, all these tenants are national tenants. They're not. The only tenant I can think of that creates a lot of smoke is Burger King. They are just ridiculous. They create a ton of smoke. Looks like the building's on fire. But all these tenants won't be creating a huge amount of smoke, and in fact, they take great care of scrubbing their exhausts and making sure that it's they're not a detriment to the community. But I'm here to answer any questions. I think Arnaldo did a terrific job on describing the project, and the buildings are very handsome. They have very rich materials and colors and finishes, and unfortunately the renderings kind of got washed out on the presentation here, but the actual presentation is much richer, and the buildings are very handsome. But anyway, happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Actually, you'll have to come back to the podium. Yes. Only because we record everything, so it does not pick up.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson, so I have a couple questions for you. When was the previous building, when was the last tenancy that was in that building?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Okay.
I can't answer that question.
It's been decreasing in tenancy as they've looked at different projects for that. Am I correct?
Well, I think the landlord has been removing some of the tenants to try to be able to have this opportunity to develop.
Do you know what type of businesses were in there previously when it was?
Well, I know many years ago it was a scuba shop there that I went to back in the late 80s. I can't remember what all the different types of shops. A lot of community businesses, it seemed like. I couldn't tell you in recent years, but back in the late 80s, early 90s.
So there was a barber shop, there was a restaurant, there was a business that handled property management in there. There were businesses.
Internet service, Sticks is there.
Yeah, the internet service was on the south end.
Interior design, churches, pool halls.
I don't recall a pool hall in there at that location. Further down the street, I remember one. But the reason that I bring this up, Mr. Gibson, is for you to say that there was traffic, or is going to be traffic. I think it's a little disingenuous to say that, because this is a change. Even though there was a restaurant, it was a sit-down restaurant, we do have more vehicle traffic that will be in there. That's the whole intent. That's why there are national companies coming in, is because they see what the potential traffic will be. Bridge Street will change. It will eventually be handling a very high load of vehicles with the change to the bridge structures in town. We do hope that Bridge Street would carry the majority of the load to that, but we're also restricted in many ways, because the entrance and exit that is proposed is within 250 feet of the California State Highway right-of-way, and we have very little to say about what that will look like now and into the future, because it all has to be approved by Caltrans, and you're probably aware of that.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm looking at is just kind of an answer. What's the vehicle load? I don't even know what the numbers are.
Well, we have our traffic engineer here who could probably speak better to that. But I could say that there's definitely some changes. The project is changing greatly. I mean, there was a different type of project. A gas station does have quite a bit of vehicle traffic coming in and out of it, and probably going off in different directions. That we have a bank use, which is much lower load. What is different, I think Ken Anderson, who is our traffic engineer, who is in the audience tonight, may be able to come up and speak to that fact, but the daytime use occasions, I mean, we do have intensities at the lunch hours and probably the evening hours at dinner times for the different restaurants. But there are, other businesses have different daylight loads when these businesses aren't going to be busy. Like none of the businesses we are proposing, I believe, have any breakfasts. So there's no breakfast business. So there won't be any morning traffic. It's not like a Starbucks, which seems to have traffic 24 hours a day. There will only be maybe from 11 to 2 pretty heavy, traffic. I can't speak for the exact demographics of each of these tenants, and then afternoon traffic. But these other businesses would provide traffic all day long. So it's different numbers and different types of traffic, and it's just part of the change. And it's part of the change this happens on a type of project like this. And I think we've taken great care to it. One of the questions was about speed bumps. Unfortunately, the fire department will not allow speed bumps in a commercial property project, and that was something we heard from the city engineer vis-a-vis the fire marshal. So, but maybe it's
the fire. Wait, step back. The fire department won't allow what?
Speed bumps.
Where?
In the parking lot. That was per the city engineer.
The street.
They were talking about a street, but
well, I'm talking about our project. I can't speak to the streets that aren't part of our project.
We have commercial properties right now with speed bumps in them. I'll go to Rayleigh's.
You might want to talk to Ben Moody then about that.
I don't need to talk to anybody about that, okay?
I'm just stating what he said in the planning commission meeting.
That's fine. But we do have, on commercial properties, we do have speed bumps. They're present. They're present now. And speed bumps aren't a deterrent in a lot of ways to traffic calming. So I'm not a big proponent of them. What they do is typically create a little bit more problem, noise and other things, and acceleration points prior to and after, and there's all kinds of things that the speed bumps create. You came up, and one of the things that you said was related to the traffic is that the police need to take care of it. They need to be more present. Mr. Gibson, I spent 32 years as a police officer. Mr. Gibson, I spent 20 years dedicated to traffic enforcement in this city. I know a little bit about the resistance of drivers. I know what they will tolerate, what they won't tolerate, that they will look for the path of least resistance in many ways. And it's not the police department's job to go in and fix where a traffic load creates from a change in traffic patterns. Traffic patterns develop over time. You can take a look at the pictures up here, and if you look at the intersection of Highway 99 and Bridge Street, you will see that vehicles, those black lines that you see in there, those are traffic patterns. Nobody deviates from those. It's the way that traffic moves. So to come in and then try to change what that looks like, there's resistance to that.
Well, I apologize for that statement. I was just hearing what the citizenry was saying, and it's a temporary situation with the site blocked off now. It's unfortunate that one of your residents has to yell and get mad at traffic, and that's all I was trying to say.
Well,
please don't take offense to it.
I don't want to see Chris go to jail, get locked up. I heard somebody, when he said he was going to go to jail, somebody applauded. But that was his next door neighbor, so. Yeah, it might have been one of the other drivers. But we're gonna try to find a solution. Obviously, the folks that live there would like to see the project go through. You have Sam who throws up the smoke screen every day. Oh, yeah. And he makes Mr. Emerson irritated with his garbage that floats his way. But we're going to work out through all these little nuances in this neighborhood. But this is a small neighborhood. It's old. It's an older neighborhood. It's been there for since. Yeah, it was post Some of it's post-flood and some of it's pre-flood. So, but that has built up over time, and there's been a little bit of rebuild to it. And yeah, have the streets deteriorated in that area? I'm going to answer that yes. Why? Because there hasn't been a tremendous load of traffic on them, and they haven't taken I guess the public eye to continually say, hey, there's a problem with those streets. So I just wanted to set the record straight that I don't want to give the citizens and the residents near this project some type of idea that things can't be done a certain way, or that the police are going to fix it. Because I think it's important that we need to look at a solution to bring this project forward, but yet make sure that we ensure that neighborhood safety is paramount to the project itself.
Well, and basically where I was trying to go with this was that existing deficiencies in the city infrastructure, i.e. surrounding road structures and systems, and new projects are not expected to mitigate all those existing conditions, and that's really all I was trying to get to. And there seemed to be a number of issues on these streets that have been left, and we definitely feel for the community here, because it's not something, but it's also something that is not fair to make this center fix all those problems.
And I would agree with you, as you've stated and has been stated by Mr. Rodriguez, who represents the city in this, is one of those, some of the issues that are coming up. There is mitigation that can be done, and we will try to work through that tonight. There are things that on site you've done that I think are amazing with the project. Moving the traffic patterns within there, I think is great. The stacking, making sure that we have queue stacking for the vehicles, it's great. Again, we'll work through it, and appreciate what you're saying, but I guess
I didn't mean to offend anybody. I certainly just trying.
Well, and I don't want to put false hope in anybody's mind that the police are going to be out.
Well,
the one cop that was in the back has already left. So,
Oh, no, we got.
Now we have
more,
cops
yeah,
standing in
yeah.
the back. So.
And we have our K-9 too.
Got the dog with
Is there a
him.
side entrance out of here?
There is, right over here.
But any further questions that we can try to answer? Hopefully I don't. Would it be helpful to have the traffic engineer answer a few questions?
Do we have any questions? No? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we had reopened the public hearing, and we're going to go ahead and close it back and bring it back to council for further discussion. Comments? Yeah.
Arnaldo, or perhaps whoever may be able to answer, was there any consideration given to the idea of the cul-de-sac that you're aware of?
To my knowledge, we did not have discussions regarding the cul-de-sac. One of the challenges with cul-de-sac is you need space.
Right.
And then also, whenever you introduce a cul-de-sac into an existing neighborhood, it doesn't necessarily diminish the vehicle trips being generated on the site. Rather, what it does is simply redistributes them through the neighborhood. So right now, why some of those drivers may be traveling on Weiler Avenue, if you introduce a cul-de-sac, the same people that live in that neighborhood will have to funnel either northbound or southbound to simply get into the shopping center. So there's pros and cons. At the staff level, we did not discuss potentially cul-de-sacking Weiler Avenue.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, thank you, Weiler Road.
All right, thank you. While I've got the floor here, the way I view it here, we're talking about the project, everything within that red line. And they have several things that we've done, the sidewalk on the south side of the property, and adding to widening and paving the south side of Weiler Road, which is outside of that red line. They've done a lot of due diligence. I love the idea, as Councilman Buckland said, of diverting traffic up to the left, and the outer improvement that will slow folks from going down. It appears it has been severely affected, or from folks who live there, since it's been blocked off, people bypassing and everything. I don't want to see anybody go to jail, but more importantly, I don't want to see anybody get hurt. Can't do anything about the porky smoke, though. I like it myself. But one thing, we're talking about the red line, inside the red line, but one thing, we've got everybody in the room here, and it's going to be a good thing, because moving forward, we can talk to Marcello's about their trash. We can talk about other stuff. Okay. And maybe think of some ways to address these very, very, very valid and serious concerns you folks have that live there. I appreciate the input. We all do. Yeah. However, for our purposes here today, we're concerned about that red line. The project itself, I think perhaps it might be appropriate to address the issues, address them timely and seriously, but not necessarily under the umbrella of this project.
Because now you're adding more businesses.
Agreed.
Businesses do not typically pick up after themselves. It becomes the residents' problems. At the end of Lawrence, there's a section that goes into a fence. All that garbage blows right down Lawrence.
Yeah.
And goes right into
Right.
the holding area.
Right. Which, again, that does not fall under the purview of this project that we're here to address right now. But what I'm saying is what you're bringing up is very valid, and we hear you. All right? I think it's important that you know that, because you take it seriously. However, our purposes here today is to consider this project. But I want to make it a point that we hear you. All right? All right.
I had a question, since the other council members don't have anything. My concern with the traffic would be also, we talked about the congestion that just takes place throughout the day, but my concern would be down that street. We also have the high school, and the restaurants that are going to come through, those are very demanding by our high school students, and Yuba City High allows students to go off campus for lunch. My concern would be that traffic, especially with teenage drivers coming down through a residential street to come and hit the drive-through and get back to campus on time. So have we looked at mitigation for that traffic issue during those concerns? And that's a lot of students coming through.
I'm going to defer to the traffic engineer, Ken Anderson, who I think is probably the best person equipped to directly respond to that, if that's okay, Mayor.
It's right down the street, yeah.
Master the microphone. For the record, Ken Anderson with KD Anderson and Associates. The direct answer to your question is no, we hadn't contemplated the traffic back and forth from the high school. To the extent that traffic is oriented to the east, it's easy to get in off a bridge and go back that way. The bigger issue in terms of how we affect the neighborhood is traffic going to the west. So from that standpoint, I believe the flow to and from the high school will wind up being manageable in that regard. But no, we don't have any analytics about that.
Okay. I'm sorry, but that's something that I disagree with, only because the high school is directly east, and it's straight down that street. Mm-hmm. I mean, a direct shot to that carriage square.
Understood.
So I have huge concerns about that. Also being the lunch hour, so if we have small kids in this neighborhood that are out there, that's also the time when preschools are coming out, kindergartens are coming out, so parents are coming back home with small kids at the same time. And if we have a flow of high school students who are driving down, and that street is a straight shot from the high school all the way down. And actually their parking lot for the high school is on that street as well from the high school. So they don't even have to come around the campus. It's their parking lot exits right there. So my concern would be that traffic as well. So if we haven't looked at that, I strongly suggest that we back up and take some mitigation on that end as well.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
From what I can see, I don't need him, is that there are two major concerns or issues going on here, and one issue which is directly related to the project itself being the approval or the challenge to the project itself, and then the Yuba City dealing directly with the concerns that smaller community has had for quite a long time, and finding a way to at least start to mitigate for some of those items. Some of the items that were brought up are like lighting. Well, you're going to have to create a lighting district for you guys, for the residents there to be able to finance, putting lights in there, the meter for the lighting district, and that'd have to be voted on by the community there to put it in, and then you get an assessment to maintain that. There are many lighting, in fact, we're going to be coming up on some lighting districts, and well, wait a minute, those got removed for this week. And there are many little small lighting districts all over the city where residents got together and said, we want lights on our streets and stuff. Well, they voted to have a lighting district, and then they get their lights because then now it's going to be serving them, so they end up paying for the lighting district. That's just, the way the city works and stuff. And then also another problem with the gutter drainage and sidewalks is that area. The taxes were never collected. The fees were never collected for creating those gutters and sidewalks. I'm not saying the road itself, but the gutters and sidewalks specifically were never included into the development portion of that area. It was more like a county rural section that was developed, and so it's still that way. And so those are things that the residents themselves would be responsible for getting an assessment for that, going from county to urban style of living. So that's just the way it works also. I've lived in a home where I ended up with a big assessment on my taxes where it ended up getting all new gutter, sidewalks, drainage and stuff. So I know the pain that it takes to, financial, that it takes to do that. It was significant because I had a corner that was huge, and so I ended up paying quite a bit. But in the long run, it turned out to be a good thing for the area. So there are many different things that need to be dealt with to get the improvements that are being requested. And there's going to be skin in the game from the city and from the residents to make that happen. Sometimes we can get grants to help with some of that in certain areas of the community, and then other areas that there are no grants available of any kind to be able to assist. So there's a complication there. So to get, some of the improvements you have, it's going to be yourselves, picking up yourselves by the bootstraps and helping to get that done. There's not much that the city can do for that without your help. The other point I wanted to make is that there is a precedence in Yuba City for doing not a cul-de-sac, but blocking that off until improvements can be in the future made when developments and redevelopments are done in that area, because there are still many undeveloped parcels in that area on Polara, or need to be redeveloped or would like to be in the future. Even Carriage Square having more redevelopment there, tearing down in the future. But there is a precedence on Bridge Street all the way down where, I can't remember the name of the road where it is, all the way down at the end of Bridge Street where they blocked that off when the residents said, there's just too much traffic here, it's dangerous. And so there is a precedence for the city to do that. Harding, thank you. I'd forgotten that's the Harding where it goes on through. And I had friends that lived 2 houses down from that, and I wasn't on the council or in government at the time, but it was just them talking as friends. So we do have precedence for doing that for at least a temporary length of time until development moves on to a different level. So there are, I think, phases to this and steps to this of what can and can't be done at this time. But I don't think it should hold up the development. Somehow we need to get the development moving forward and then make a commitment as a council to move forward with this in our staff to move forward with either temporarily blocking it off to make it, people not racing through. That will also keep the degrading of your road going down for things. So for me, that's the quick fix. Please, I'll let you speak in a moment. But that would be the quick fix. But we have to have a commitment to, from both groups, to actually do what it takes to raise it to the urban level of lighting and curbs, gutters, sidewalks, drainage, because it's not going to be a small penny to get there. I've experienced it, so I know what it takes. But if that's what you want, we can start the path to get there with this. But I still don't think that the project should be held up. We just need to now separate them and do what we can initially to calm it down and then move forward the next steps. That's all I can see at this time for me. So,
It would do no good putting that barrier up because they're still exiting out onto Weiler currently, and they're exiting. If someone hit the gas a little too much, they would hit my driveway. They would hit my vehicles. I live right on the corner of 1220 Weiler.
you're the corner lot?
Yeah, I'm the corner lot. And so that driveway exits right out into our driveway.
What?
But if he was talking about putting that barrier up now.
No.
Madam Mayor,
Well,
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
You might be misunderstanding where.
Hold on.
Just a point of order, when we have discussion from the audience, they should go.
Need to come up to the podium, yeah.
So, go ahead.
So one point of clarification, Mayor, council members. So Mrs. Reese's home is this corner
Right,
one right
corner.
here. The driveway location is roughly the new access point's
So
about
it will
right
not be.
there.
It will not be.
Talking about the current one. The current.
That's going to be
Wait,
gone.
hold-
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
gone.
Okay.
Stan.
Correct. The existing drive location is going to be removed. It's going to be relocated to the west.
If you have to come up to the podium if you wish to talk, so we're not going to do this discussion back and forth.
Through the mayor. I've got a couple of questions, and while Mr. Rodriguez is up there. As this project moves forward, what's the anticipated time to bring the businesses on
I'm
and
gonna
be
look-
operational?
I'm going to look at the applicant, approximately 6 months. Is that a safe assessment? So 6 to 9 months.
Thank you. So there are a couple things, and Pamela Thompson, I appreciate your comments that you made, a very nice presentation. Some of the comments that you made and the existing problems, like at Antonio's out onto Highway 20, that was an existing business, and that had an existing drive-through, and it has had for, I don't know, 25 years, something like that. Unfortunately, a rather popular restaurant located in there, almost as popular as Porky's, but it located in there and has created a problem. And now how do you fix that? And part of that is that's Caltrans right of way. That Highway 20 is not under the jurisdiction of Yuba City when it comes to what we can do with that roadway. We have to go through Caltrans for that. Part of the same issue that we have with this map, where you see the 3 arrows, 2 coming in and 1 going out, that's Caltrans. They're the ones that we're within 250 feet of the intersection of Highway 99. So they're regulating what can be done there to certain standards, and it's well within their little book of knowledge that they have that's about that thick over at Caltrans. Speed bumps, I'll tell you straight up, they're not the answer on a public roadway. They are a point of acceleration in advance and a point of acceleration after you leave them. If someone hits them rather hard, you don't want speed bumps in front of your house, because all you're going to hear all night long is poor suspension on cars and cars driving down onto the speed bump and destroying themselves as they go 60 miles an hour down your road. All of the other infrastructure that y'all talked about, I think that Councilmember Cleveland, I think addressed that appropriately. There is one of my concerns is that Weiler is a narrow roadway. And I think that we have to take that into consideration. But given the phase in which these will be coming on and in the building, that gives us some time to work through some traffic issues where we can come back and have direction to how we can maybe solve that. It's not going to be inexpensive for the city. We would have to find the money to do it. And that's going to be one of the issues that will be at hand, is how can we do it, and how can we do it at a reasonable level, because this is not something that falls on the development itself to take care of that existing problem on your street or those roads. Clearly, it is not their responsibility. But we do need to work through it. We need to make sure, no matter what happens, if this project were not to go through tonight, there will be another project. The gateway into the downtown of Yuba City will be through the Bridge Street corridor. That is the reason the Bank of Feather River located their new headquarters there. It's going to be a remarkable entry point into the downtown area of Yuba City, and it's going to carry more vehicles. We would hope that traffic patterns develop through the process to utilize Bridge Street and not the side streets. I can't carry on a conversation with you. There is an issue that has been brought up, and as we looked at the maps with Yuba City High School traffic. And we would have to work through that to make sure that we're moving traffic that would be coming there for their 40-minute lunch, I think it is.
I think so.
Where if they're going to be in line for 10 minutes, then they get held up, and then they're speeding back towards the high school, and that's always a continual problem that we have in our community. So we'll work through the issues. From my estimation, there's nothing so paramount here that we can't get through these and keep the neighborhood feel that you currently have, minus all the speeding vehicles, out of the mix.
Okay. Pam?
Thank you. I guess my main question is, if there was a road in the development prior, a road straight through, Pelora went straight through from Bridge Street to Franklin. Yes. Yes. Yes.
No, there wasn't.
Private access.
Okay, maybe it's a street. Maybe.
No, let me go back. I'm going to step back into history.
Okay.
There are people who lived in this town far longer than I have. What you see in the picture was an improvement that was made in about 1980 something. That was a very narrow little alley that kind of ran through there, and it has always been marked north and south on that parcel where vehicles pass through.
Mm-hmm.
This is private property restricted to use for the Carriage Square complex.
Mm-hmm.
Vehicles, there were some notices that you could be arrested for trespassing at times. They were very strict and very responsive to that being maintained as their property for that complex. Always has been, as long as I've lived here, and I've been in this town since 1970.
And I've been here since '93, and that road, or whatever you want to call it, has always been a throughway.
Lot. It's a parking lot.
And on both sides, there were businesses, and there was a road in the center.
The parking lot.
A parking lot.
And people use it as a street.
Okay, so what you're saying is, because it's not classified as a road, then the new development that's going to go into place, they're not required to continue that path.
It's going to be a
Absolutely.
part of the parking
And
lot.
that's where the issue is.
They could build a building
Right in the
right in
center.
the middle of it if they wanted to. There is nothing that stops them from utilizing their entire property other than permitting. They can utilize that property any way that they would like.
And for the traffic to spill out of their development onto our roads, that's
That's normal.
acceptable?
That's normal.
That's an
That is the way it is. All over the city.
That's the road.
Businesses
neighborhoods?
spill out in driveways all over the place. How do they get into the businesses? How do they get out of the businesses? It's not spilling onto the roads.
I guess my concern is the fact that this is a very small residential community and it's now going to incorporate a large shopping center. This is not like
always been
Bel
there.
Air. This is not like Rayleigh's.
always
This is
been
very
there.
small.
Restaurants.
That was my concern. It's just a very small community.
Well, again, the architect, when Mr. Gibson was up there and I was speaking about it, that was a two-story complex. It had a lot of traffic in and out of there all the time. There were various uses of that property, always has been. You might have seen at 9 o'clock at night, very few vehicles in there, but there were restaurants and everything else when it was fully populated. And it has been there for a long time. In fact, the Hatchers, weren't they right in their area? They had a restaurant in there. Hitching Post.
Right.
There you go. It took me a while to get that one dug out of the cobwebs.
Thank you.
Cassandra?
Okay, I do have a question. Okay, in the proposed plan for Section 5 of Bridge Street, they're going to be putting a medium up in the middle of Bridge Street, on Bridge Street, and I heard on Franklin. So that is going to affect us in the future. For everybody, if they're coming down Bridge Street and they want to come to the plaza, well, they're not going to be able to make a left-hand turn off of Bridge Street. That's what I'm to understand. They're coming down Bridge Street from the new bridge, the new development area on Bridge Street.
Yep.
Ben is coming.
I was just concerned, because it's like, how are they going to make
Yeah,
that turn?
Those are two different things going on.
We're
So that doesn't have anything to do with the project. But Ben, can you address the phase 5? I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you can just explain a
definitely. Good
little
evening.
bit, so.
I'd like to just comment the Public Works and Planning. This is not something we take lightly. We've looked at this project. We've been working through it almost a year to try to figure out a good fit for this project, how to make it work. Because it's a redevelopment, and how do you fit new standards into an existing site. And so with that, we really took a hard look at some of the mitigation measures. I just want to call out is right here. We're going to widen that section there, kind of where there's a taper, so when they come off the highway, they could get out of that travel lane and then come down. We're going to widen the south side, so not even on the property owner's thing, but in order to kind of help alleviate that issue with the narrowness of Weiler, we're going to widen that about 4 to 5 feet, so it allows for parking on the north and then 2 full travel lanes, and then the sidewalk along there. There's an actual sidewalk will be there to the corner. They're going to put a new sidewalk, curb and gutter through here. And then this is going to be changed to a one-way out, where it's an exit. So the vehicles, when they get in here and are working on the drive-throughs, without a straight shot down, the intent is to help push them up this way and then push them out through there to keep them going through the neighborhood. And so to address another mitigation measure is that with that traffic going out to Lawrence and some of the additional traffic, in the addendum report, I believe, Ken, it was around, we really pushed on them to try to find out what that impact was going to be. And it talked about 20 to 30 trips during the peak hour in the afternoon, because the AM lunch wasn't really, the AM breakfast wasn't really an issue. It was really that PM hour. And so and then there's different amount of cars as suggested from just how they're getting diverted, how they're coming through B Street. So we do recognize that there will be more cars, but at the same time, there's existing use that was zoned that way, and there was credit for the amount of those cars, and then we're trying to mitigate it as much as possible on how to handle those cars. With Bridge Street, the final phase is going to look, it's not designed at this point. There's discussion that it's going to look very similar to the east, between Cooper and Plumas, where there'll be a median across this section of Lawrence to prevent that left turn out. Most likely with the future expectation of travel, Bridge Street need to be 2 lanes in each direction. This westbound left to south will most likely be terminated, and then going north out of Lawrence, this left will be terminated just because of the flow of traffic, and so cars will have to come out of here and go right, and so that will impact the traffic. She mentioned Franklin. I think that might be a reference to in the traffic study. They're talked about due to the volumes in the future. There'll be a pork chop, kind of a right in, right out at Pelora and Franklin, the potential pork chop because of the traffic volumes, and the percentage was very low. I think it was like 0.1%, 0.3%. I don't have the exact number, but this project impacts to that, so it didn't facilitate this project, the requirement to put it in at this point.
Thank you, Ben.
Through the mayor, and Ben, if he could just go ahead and stay
Ben,
for a second.
Don't move.
It's fun having you up there, Ben. So making it perfectly clear, there is no design or traffic pattern design outside the 250 feet that Caltrans is going to pretty much regulate on us on Bridge Street itself. There's nothing on phase 5 yet that's on paper, am I correct?
Correct.
So one of my suggestions is going to be when we get to phase 5, that we look at phase 5A and phase 5B, because there's going to be an opportunity for people to change some traffic patterns in there. And meaning that at some point we may be turning and completely shutting off to make that traffic flow smoothly through there, some of the left-hand turns onto streets like North Lawrence or Barrett, just for the mere fact that they're close to other intersections and you're trying to limit the left-hand opportunities that would be going in and out of there. So they'd be utilizing back street flow Weiler up into their own neighborhoods and then being able to exit out different directions. So it will change it. And those will give some opportunities to calm these neighborhoods down. That's phase 5, folks. We don't even have the money for it. So know that we're looking at it because it's part of the greater project, but that will also help, I think, in those neighborhoods in the future.
Agreed.
Thank you, Ben.
I have a question.
You'll have to go up to
You
the
have to go to the
podium,
podium.
please.
While he's going up there, I did want to mention something else. One of the, go ahead, while you're going up. While the improvements to the roads that you're requesting and the paving and the widening and all that stuff, there are unintended consequences to that. When a neighborhood that has some traffic tendencies for diverting is improved to a high level, what happens? It becomes even more of a freeway. People drive even faster because now they have nice, pretty little road to race up and down. And that's some of the things that happen. So when the improvements do have in areas that have this type of rerouting that people like to go through to avoid traffic. So that is something that would have mitigations for that are going to have to be considered in the future too, as the improvements are made on Weiler and Lawrence and stuff like that. So there will be that new problem coming up as soon as it's improved. Look at the highways. We fix them and make them nice. Instead of them going 65, they're doing 90 because, it's comfortable to drive 90 now. Same thing happens in the city. I've noticed that in every single neighborhood we've done these improvements. All of a sudden we're getting calls, they're driving 60 in a 35. And so we're going to have a lot of adjustments to make in the city as these changes are made.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, You done?
Yeah.
My question is that as it comes out on the bridge, the median strip that goes down bridge on the new Bridge Street, will that prevent people from coming out left, taking a left turn out?
We don't have any plans yet, but that's when we start putting it down on paper, those could be considerations into the plan, so.
Because I'll tell you, the traffic's increased so bad now that it's very hard to get out on that street now.
Right.
There's so much cars coming down that, and I worked in the Bay Area for 25 years, and I know what traffic's like. And I'll tell you what, when I lived here in 66, there was no problem with traffic. But this now backs up on both ends, from 99 to Gray.
We completely understand that. You know, from the 60s to now, obviously our population has grown. So our future plans are to improve Bridge Street. We just don't have that phase written down yet, but we will look at those dividers, left turns, right turns, and so forth. That's part of the plan for the future.
Well, that's all I had. Thanks.
Through the mayor, and for consideration for beginning some mitigation on this on the city's part without great expense, possibly located for northbound on Pelora at B Street, that we begin marking that as no through traffic at that location, turning traffic more towards B Street if they're looking to get over to Gray Avenue. I think pre-marking that might reduce some of it and get all the through traffic moving down a more improved roadway. It will have an impact on B Street, but I think that notification in advance of that and post B Street may take care of part of that problem.
All right, any other questions, comments, motions? Further discussion?
I'd make motion to approve staff's recommendation and that we do a mitigation effort as part of that on Pelora Avenue at B Street with an attempt to divert traffic onto B itself.
I'll second that, and just, you know, basically try to figure out a way, continue conversation, and start working seriously on, you know, I'm hopefully one of the major things will at least be a temporary blocking off in some way, so we get people to change their patterns, and they'll get used to that. So hopefully that will be, and that's not part of the motion, it's just, you know, basically the motion is to go with the staff's recommendation.
We have a
As he
motion.
said.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have, why don't we do roll call on this one?
Councilmember Buckland,
Yes.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Yes.
Councilmember Cardoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
and Mayor Didball.
Yes.
Keep going.
All right. So, project is to move forward with, as stated, with medications to be worked out.
Absolutely.
All right, next on our public hearing are actually items 7 and 8. It looks like everybody's departing.